The story of Russia begins not in grand palaces or bustling cities, but on the endless, untamed plains of Eastern Europe. Here, the land stretches as far as the eye can see, a sea of grass and forest shaped by wind, rain, and the changing seasons. Long before the rise of cities or the drawing of borders, these wild expanses were home to scattered peoples, living in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Early Slavic tribes carved out a life here, close to the earth. They were farmers who coaxed crops from the soil, hunters who tracked game through the forests, and fishermen who cast their nets in winding rivers. Each season brought new challenges, bitter winters, spring floods, and the constant threat of hunger. Their world was a patchwork of clans and extended families, each with its own traditions and leaders. Yet they were united by a common tongue and a deep reverence for the natural world. Their faith was woven into the landscape, a pagan belief system that saw spirits in the trees, rivers, and stones. Among their many gods, Perun, the mighty god of thunder, was especially feared and respected. Storms could bring life-giving rain or sudden destruction, and the crack of thunder was a reminder of nature's unpredictable power. Life on the plains was never easy, but the Slavs were a people of remarkable resilience. They became skilled woodworkers, building sturdy homes from timber and crafting boats to travel the rivers that crisscrossed their world. These rivers were lifelines, connecting distant settlements and providing routes for trade and communication. Villages often sprang up along riverbanks where the land was fertile and the water abundant. Here, people gathered to trade honey, wax and furs, precious goods that linked them to neighboring tribes and distant markets. There were no nations or borders as we know them today. Instead, local chieftains ruled over clusters of villages, their authority based on strength, wisdom, and the loyalty of their kin. The sheer vastness of the land kept these tribes isolated from one another. For generations, life changed little, shaped by the slow turning of the seasons and the steady pulse of the earth. But the world beyond the horizon was stirring. From the north, a new force was on the move, drawn by the promise of trade and conquest. Longships with fierce dragon-headed prows began to appear on the rivers, carrying Norse warriors and traders from distant lands. Their arrival would bring both danger and opportunity. The meeting of these two worlds, Slavic and Norse, would spark new alliances, rivalries, and cultural exchanges. The destiny of the Eastern Plains was about to be rewritten. In this crucible of change, the foundations of a nation were laid, setting the stage for the birth of Russia as we know it today. The newcomers who would shape the destiny of Eastern Europe were the Varangians, Vikings from the cold, rugged lands of Scandinavia. They were not just fearsome raiders, but also ambitious traders, explorers and adventurers, driven by the promise of wealth and new horizons. Their longships cut through the misty rivers, bringing with them a spirit of enterprise and conquest. To the Varangians, the vast network of rivers was more than just a landscape. It was a series of highways leading to the riches of Byzantium and beyond. They established fortified trading posts along these waterways, collecting tribute from the Slavic peoples and controlling the flow of goods like furs, honey and wax. These routes became the arteries of a new civilization. The Slavic tribes, weary from years of internal strife and constant threats from neighboring peoples, saw an opportunity for stability. In a bold move, they invited the Varangians to rule over them and bring order to their lands. Rurik, a legendary Varangian leader, accepted their call and established his rule in Novgorod, founding a dynasty that would shape the region for centuries. After Rurik's death, his successor Oleg set his sights further south. With strategic cunning, Oleg captured the city of Kiev, a vital center on the Dnieper River, and united the scattered Slavic and Finnic tribes under his rule. This act marked the true birth of Kievan Rus, a powerful new state at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. In this new realm, Norse rulers and a Slavic majority blended their customs, languages, and beliefs. Over time, a unique identity emerged, one that drew from both the adventurous spirit of the Vikings and the deep-rooted traditions of the Slavs. Festivals, trade, and daily life reflected this rich cultural fusion. With centralized power, Kievan Rus experienced a period of stability and growth. Trade flourished along the river routes, cities expanded, and new centers of learning and culture began to emerge. The region transformed from a patchwork of warring tribes into a thriving, interconnected society. The once isolated settlements of the north now became part of a powerful kingdom, stretching its influence from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. Kievan Rus looked south to the great city of Constantinople, engaging with the Byzantine Empire as both eager traders and formidable rivals, eager to claim their place in the wider world. With its rivers bustling with commerce and its cities rising in splendor, Kievan Rus had truly arrived on the world stage, setting the foundation for centuries of history to come. Under Oleg's successors, Kievan Rus entered its golden age. Kiev became a thriving metropolis, ruled by wealthy grand princes. The most transformative moment came when Vladimir the Great adopted Orthodox Christianity, uniting his people under a new faith. Byzantine priests brought the Cyrillic alphabet, new art and architecture, enriching Rus's culture. Yaroslav the Wise expanded the state's influence, forged alliances with Europe, and issued the first law code. Kiev became a center of learning and culture, but after Yaroslav's death, rivalries among princes weakened the state. The seeds of decline were sown even as the realm reached its peak. The unity that had built Kievan Rus began to unravel. A new threat was looming on the horizon. As the once mighty Kievan Rus fractured under the weight of internal strife and political intrigue, a new and terrifying menace emerged from the endless eastern steppes, the Mongols. Their arrival would forever alter the fate of the land and its people. In 1237, under the ruthless command of Batu Khan, Mongol armies thundered across the plains, their cavalry swift and merciless. City after city fell before their onslaught, their walls shattered, their people left defenseless against the storm. The jewel of Rus, Kiev, was sacked with brutal efficiency. Its ancient churches and proud monuments were reduced to rubble, its citizens massacred or scattered, and its centuries-old glory consumed by fire and bloodshed. The Mongols, known to the Ruses as the Tatars, established the Golden Horde, a vast and powerful khanate. They ruled not through direct occupation, but by demanding heavy tribute from the Ruses' princes, who were forced to kneel before the Khan and pay for the right to govern their own lands. Rival princes, desperate to maintain their power, competed fiercely for the Khan's favor. This rivalry deepened the divisions among the Rus, making unity impossible and leaving the land vulnerable to further exploitation. Under Mongol rule, Rus was cut off from the cultural and economic currents of Western Europe. Trade routes withered, cities shrank, and the economy faltered, plunging the region into a long period of stagnation and hardship. Yet, even in this dark era, the relentless pressure of Mongol demands forced the Ruses to adapt. The need for strong, centralized leadership began to take root, setting the stage for a new power to rise from the ashes. In the shadows of devastation, one city, Moscow, learned to navigate the complexities of Mongol rule. Its princes became skilled diplomats and shrewd survivors, turning adversity into opportunity. The long Tatar yoke would endure for centuries, shaping the destiny of Ruses. But it was not only a time of suffering, it was also a crucible that forged the resilience and ambition of its people, preparing them for the next chapter in their history. As the old centers of power faded, the focus of Rus's life and leadership began to shift northward, toward the forests and rivers that would shelter a new beginning. From these northern lands, Moscow was about to emerge, not just as a city, but as the heart of a new Russian state. The story of Russia, shaped by fire and shadow, was far from over. A new dawn was on the horizon. In the wake of Mongol devastation, Moscow, a minor town, began its rise. Its remote location shielded it from raids, and its princes proved shrewd and loyal to the Mongols. Ivan Kalita became the chief tribute collector, amassing wealth and power. The Russian Orthodox Church moved its seat to Moscow, making it the spiritual heart of Ruses. With political, economic, and religious authority concentrated in one city, Moscow's princes expanded their domain. They bought land, subdued rivals, and built a new state under Mongol oversight. Moscow was no longer just a city, it was becoming the nucleus of a nation. The groundwork for a unified Russia was being laid. The gathering of the Russian lands became Moscow's mission. Through marriage, purchase, inheritance, and force, the Muscovite princes absorbed rival principalities. Dmitry Donskoy's victory at Kulikovo Field in 1380 proved the Mongols could be challenged. Ivan the Great, in the 15th century, crushed Novgorod and other rivals, uniting Russia under his rule. In 1480, Ivan faced the Mongols at the Ujara River. Without a battle, the Mongols retreated, ending their domination. Ivan now styled himself ruler of all Rus, sovereign of a vast independent state. Moscow had become the heart of a new Russian nation. The age of Mongol rule was over. A new era of autocracy and expansion was beginning. The Tsardom was on the horizon. Ivan the Great's grandson, Ivan IV, would transform Muscovy into the Tsardom of Russia. Crowned Tsar at 16, Ivan IV claimed the legacy of Rome and Byzantium. His early reign saw reforms and military victories, conquering Kazan and Astrakhan, and opening new trade routes. But after his wife's death, Ivan's paranoia grew. He unleashed the Oprichnina, a reign of terror that devastated the nobility and countryside. Ivan the Terrible's rule established autocracy and began Russia's expansion into Siberia. Yet his brutality left the state weakened and unstable. The Tsardom was now vast, but its future was uncertain. Ivan's legacy was both awe-inspiring and deeply troubling. Russia stood on the brink of crisis. Ivan the Terrible's death plunged Russia into chaos, the time of troubles. With no heir, rival factions, pretenders, and foreign armies tore the country apart. Moscow was occupied by Poland, Novgorod seized by Sweden, and famine ravaged the land. Yet, a patriotic uprising led by Prince Pozharsky and Kuzma Minin drove out the invaders. In 1613, the Zemsky Sobor elected Michael Romanov as Tsar, ending the crisis. The Romanovs began the long task of restoring order and reclaiming lost lands. Russia's survival was secured by unity and resilience. A new dynasty would rule for 3 centuries. The nation began to rebuild. The early Romanovs restored stability, but serfdom deepened, binding peasants to the land. Russia's expansion accelerated, especially eastward. Cossacks and explorers crossed Siberia to the Pacific. By the late 1600s, Russia was the largest country on earth. Peter the Great revolutionized the state, modernizing the army, navy, and administration. He built St. Petersburg, Russia's window on Europe, after defeating Sweden in the Great Northern War. In 1721, Peter proclaimed Russia an empire and himself its first emperor. The scattered tribes of the past had become a mighty Eurasian power. The Russian Empire would shape world history for centuries. From humble beginnings, Russia had risen to imperial might. Its story was just beginning.